I get anywhere from 20 to 100 emails per show.
Wow.
So what I do is when I make a sale, I have a little sales form.
Yep, there it is.
I've always had a website, but it was not that great in the past. And I rarely had a website sale. I just had it more for reference so people could look at my stuff. But I wanted to really up that and really develop my online business. I went with you guys, and really a fantastic decision.
There's not one path that everyone needs to take. It's however you get it working, keep it working, keep it going.
But you never know. You never know who's a customer. I've had people that I thought were just bugging me, and I wish they'd leave, and then they end up buying something. So
for sure,
try to be polite to everybody because you just don't know.
You never know. It's all just about reps and sets. All right, guys, Patrick from Art Storefronts back with another customer interview. This time I have the talented photographer, John Kennington, coming to me directly from his home in, where do you live, John?
Bixby, Oklahoma, which is
Tulsa. Nice, in the Tulsa area. And fired up to have this interview. I've been looking forward to it because you are what I love calling the road warrior, the road and show warrior, a guy that's doing a ton of road and show events on a yearly basis. And so I want to get into that and peel back some of the layers and get into some of your trade craft.
Sure.
But before that, give us the origin story. How long you've been a photographer? Are you a full-time photographer? What does that whole landscape look like?
Yeah, I am full-time. I've been taking pictures for over 50 years now. Started in high school. My parents bought me a camera, paid for my film. I was able to do that. And I've been taking pictures ever since. I started selling my work about 15 years ago at art shows. And for the last, and I've been doing it pretty much a full-time art show schedule for these last 15 years. Up until about 3 years ago, I did have another regular job. Luckily, I worked from home remotely, so I was able to, it allowed me to be on the road a little more than having to actually be in an office. So I could, if I did a show in Colorado, I could log in from Colorado and get my work done. But it still limited me. I did, and that job ended about 3 years ago. So I am now just completely full-time doing art shows.
Amazing. Amazing. I love that. And starting in the film days, I assume you're all digital these days. Yeah.
Oh yeah. Definitely all digital. I did the darkroom stuff and all, but I don't miss it a bit.
No. And anyone that tells you that they do is lying, because that was a lot of work. Yeah. I did some of that back in the day as well. Awesome. I want to start literally right in on the fairs and shows, because it's what a great way to go about it. Over the last 3 years since you've been full-time, how many a year are you doing exactly?
I've been doing about 25, 26, 27 shows a year.
Wow.
I'm trying to, in this next year, scale back a little bit, but maybe get down to maybe 20. I'm cutting out some of the less profitable ones. What I used to think was a really profitable show 5-10 years ago, I wouldn't even think about doing nowadays.
Wow, that's amazing. And how far from, so you're pretty much just centrally located in the United States. How far out do the concentric circles go of area that you cover?
I've done some shows in Colorado. I do several in Texas. Texas is a really big, good market. Last several years, I've done a couple down in Florida. I'll string 2 or 3 together in Florida and do that. I've got a couple of East Coast shows I do. In fact, over Memorial Day and this coming Labor Day, I'm doing a show out on Long Island in the Hamptons.
Wow.
And I grew up in New Jersey, and I've got one show that I do most years in New Jersey. Gives me an excuse to go back home too.
Love that.
I've got a really great show in Columbus, Ohio. I do every year now, and in other words, Nebraska, Kansas. So those are the areas I typically go to.
Amazing. Now, one of the arguments that I've always made with how to grow an art, how to grow a photography business is like, you can either be a road and show warrior, or you can sell direct and build your own business. The odds are much better of making it that way than trying to get into galleries, right, and have a profitable business that way. That's at least the landscape that I've seen. But what I'm really curious about is, out of those 20, 25, 30 shows that you do a year, are you profitable at every single solitary one of them? Or is it hit or miss?
No, I'm profitable. I think last year I may have had one show where I may not quite have broken even. It was a newer show, a show I hadn't done before, and I probably made my booth fee back, but I probably didn't cover all of my travel expenses.
Got it.
And that's a show I will not be going back to.
Yeah. And sometimes that's just how you learn.
Because yeah. And then, and of course, you're subject to the weather. You just never know. Because I know the show just this past weekend, I've done this. There's a show in Rockport, Texas on 4th of July weekend.
Mm-hmm.
I did not do that one this year, but I've done it in the past. And they canceled Sunday because of Hurricane Beryl.
Yeah. And so there you go.
They made it a one-day show on Saturday, but if I had been doing it, I would not even have gone for Saturday.
Yeah.
I would have lost money, but that's just the way. That's the risk you take with outdoor art shows.
Oh, 100%. And it's hard. It's hard on the body. It's miles on the car. It's time away from family. Yep. So it's not an easy way to do it. But I'd be curious to get your advice. And let's say up and coming artist, photographer, they want to do a show, right? And go through the work of saying, okay, this is going to be my collection. These are going to be my pieces. I'm figuring out my price points, and I'm actually going to sit in a booth and have real conversations with real people as opposed to just on the website, just social media marketing. What would be your recommendation on how many a first-time artist or photographer needs to do in a year to break even, to solve for that weather? Are you booking 3? Are you booking 5? Are you booking 10?
When you're first starting out, as you talk about, and you're going to be doing the smaller shows or even markets, where you've got less overhead, less expense. The shows I'm doing, I have a double booth. So I'm typically paying anywhere from $800 to $1,200 just for my booth fee.
And that's just the fee.
Whereas a market or farmer's market or a small little community show, you may have $100 investment. When you're doing those shows, those are easier to do, obviously. And I'd say at least 5 or 6 shows a year to at least, because not all of them are going to be good.
Yeah.
So you got to figure out which ones are good. Like you were saying, you just don't know. And the weather's going to be a factor. But I would say at least 5 or 6 just to factor out those other variables that you can't control.
Yeah, I love that. And again, I learned this in my career really early when I was like in a trade show as an earlier business. I had a clothing company, and this sweet talking gal, she was so good. She got me to advertise in this magazine. And I think we broke even on it. We got a ton of press on it, but it wasn't anywhere near what it was. And what I learned is back then, if you were going to advertise in a magazine, you couldn't just do one edition. You had to do 3 or 4 or 5 editions to be able to build up enough momentum, get enough eyeballs to actually pay the whole thing off. And I feel like that translates directly to shows too, because they're terrified. They're scared to death of doing it. They're like, oh, this is such a commitment. And then they limp into one and they don't get the great results a lot of times because they don't know what they're doing, but they don't get the great results and then they quit. And it's like, no, if you would have just committed to 3 or 4 or 5, you would be wildly profitable. So I love that you're doing them. Do you feel like year after year, you are seeing the growth in your digital business, your direct website sale business as a result of the shows? Is it building momentum in the business?
Yes. And that's the reason I've been with ASF now, I think about 3 years. And I've always had a website, but it was not that great in the past. And I rarely had a website sale. I just had it more for reference so people could look at my stuff. But I wanted to really up that and really develop my online business. I went with you guys, and really a fantastic decision because I've got as professional a website as you could possibly hope for. And I'm on Copilot, and also I'm getting the marketing emails going out for me. And I've had some online sales to strangers, but most of my sales have been people who've seen me at shows.
Yeah, of course.
I just had our 4th of July sale 2 days ago. It ended, and I had a $1,400 sale from somebody who saw me at a show in Oklahoma City.
Amazing.
And they bought a piece that they didn't swing for it back at the show, but that marketing email for the 4th of July sales was over the edge, and they made the purchase.
Yeah. How did you find us, and what brought you to us originally?
I guess I was Googling some of the different photography website hosting or companies, such as, and yours came up. And I also had a photographer friend who was with you guys, he's a good friend of mine. And so I asked him about it, and he highly recommended you guys too. So he's very happy with what you were doing for him.
It's the marketer in me. I always have to get down to attribution.
To find out. I found you on the web and also word of mouth.
Yeah, which is amazing. I know that the rules of every show are a little bit different, but I'm curious, what has been your approach to email capture at each individual show? What is a general average of emails that you're capturing per show? And what does that landscape look like?
I probably get anywhere from 20 to 100 emails per show.
Wow.
So what I do is when I make a sale,
Mm-hmm.
in fact, I brought one to show you. I have a little sales form with this.
Yep, there it is.
You can if you're just starting out, you can buy a book of these at Office Depot. You don't need
Mm-hmm.
a custom one, but I ended up doing some custom ones.
Okay.
And I write down their order, and I'll get their, if it's going to be something I have to ship to them, I get their name and address and all.
Mm-hmm.
But the second line on here is name, second line is email.
Mm-hmm.
So whenever somebody buys something from me, I ask, would you like to be in my email list? And probably 80% of people more than happy to give me their email after they bought something.
Mm-hmm.
But a few people say they don't, and that's fine. But I say, hey, I do an email a few times a month with my new stuff if you're interested. And 80-85%, I'd say people give me their email. I also have, in the past, I've had a sign-up sheet for people to sign up, to give me their email to be on my email list. And I would get anywhere from a dozen to 30, 40 names on that email list who didn't purchase but wanted to get on my list. But about a year ago, based on stuff that we talked about, I added QR codes, and I've got this here too. And so I have this plastered all over my booth.
Amazing.
Win a free print, sign up for my VIP email list. And if it's a big show, the show in Columbus I did, I had about 50 people who signed up with the QR code.
Wow.
And I captured their emails.
People don't realize, like, COVID hit and everyone understands what a QR code is now. Young and old. Yeah. Everyone knows, okay, I hold my phone up to that thing, because when I went back to restaurants, every menu, I was like, where's the menu? And they're like, it's on the table. It's great.
Yep. And I still have my sign-up sheet for those who don't want to do that. And I'll still get some of both. But this is great because that's 50 emails I don't have to type in.
Yes.
And probably 50% of them, I have trouble reading it, and I probably type them in incorrectly.
Yeah, no kidding. And because the incentive is there, they're entered in to win something. You have the opportunity to win after the fact. Now, are you running sales for all of those folks after the fact, after you announce the print winner?
That I haven't done. Obviously they get the 20% coupon when they sign up. So that's the only sale that I'm offering them, is the initial 20% sign up.
Got it. Yeah, which is still good incentive.
Oh yeah, absolutely. It's a great incentive, and the free print, both those things just make a big difference.
What do you feel like the sales activity is after the show with that technique? Are we seeing a 5% lift, a 10% lift, hit or miss?
It's hit or miss. It's maybe 5% if I had to put a percentage on it. It's not huge, but I'm capturing those names, and I'm really going after I'm hoping for the big sale, because I don't get a whole lot of small sales. But I'm really going for the big sale. And this person ordered a $1,400 metal print again just last couple days ago.
Yeah, which is great.
And they used the coupon code from the 4th of July sale to purchase it. Yeah, so that's really what I'm shooting for. Although obviously take any sale I get, but
yeah,
big ones, those big follow-ups have been really what's made a big difference.
Yeah, tremendous. And I audited your website stats, and you're still doing really well on your website sales, especially in terms of sales volume. And I won't throw the number out there unless you want to. The more I'm in this business and the more that I get to meet more of you guys, I'm like, look at the data and everything else. We have some artists that do so well at the shows and fairs and cannot translate it into online sales at all. And I'm like perplexed by it. But I feel like you're on a really good trajectory where nobody wants to do the shows and fairs at your clip for the rest of their lives. Okay. It's hard on the body, hard on the car, Yep. But as long as the online sales are continuing to ladder up throughout each year that you're doing that, you're going to be left with a sizable 6-figure a year business without having to do all the shows. You're going to be able to go down to 3 to 5 a year in a number of years. And I wonder if that's entered into your planning, into your thinking, or do you just really enjoy doing them and talking to the people and being gregarious and that?
I do enjoy them, but that definitely has been in our thinking.
Yeah.
I would sit down with my wife and we discuss it, and we hope that I can cut back to just do some of the most significant shows each year and make up the difference on online sales. So I'm glad that you've looked at my website, because it's hard for me. I haven't looked actually really closely at it even this year. I know I get the sales in occasionally, but I'm glad to hear what you had to say about it. That's great.
Yeah, you're at a healthy number. I'm gonna one person on Instagram asked a question. You're a great person to answer it, so I'll put it up. Is there a good resource for how to go about your first show or booth? Some guidance on the necessities of getting started messy?
Yeah, there's a. Are we just have ASF people, or we have other people out?
No, we have other people. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, they're a really good. I mean, if you're in ASF, I had a couple of weeks ago, or about a month or so ago, I posted a link on Small Winds about that, and some links to some places, some other information to get started. But there's a really good a book. There's a book on Amazon on doing art shows. It's by a woman, and I don't have it handy, but it's by a woman named Maria.
Oh, Maria Brophy. I know her.
Okay, if that's the one. And if you Google that, and she wrote that book about 10, 15 years ago. It's not a current book, but back when I started, we had the internet, but it didn't have the resources we have now. And I used it. That book was extremely helpful. And it's still 90% of that still applies today.
Yeah.
So you want to get let me just fix this light here.
And while he's fixing that, I have an ultimate guide to shows and fairs. It's more about the marketing tradecraft than the booth stuff. But if you're on Facebook or Instagram, you can leave the comment with the word shows, and I'll send it to you, and I'll put it in the show notes on the podcast later.
And there's something I'll send to you when we're done here. But there's another photographer friend of mine who does shows. He mainly is local in Oklahoma, but he travels a little bit. He had a really great blog post on his blog about. He's just really generous with his information and spent the time to write this up. Mm-hmm. He's got a really good guide on getting the tent, how to apply to shows, where to apply. Really gave you all the basics. He did a really good job. I don't have that handy to give, but I'll send that to you, Patrick, and you can post that.
Send it to me later, and this is going to end up on the podcast. I'll put it in the show notes on the podcast.
Yeah, because it's a really great resource. The guy's name is Jason Wallace, is the photographer, and he just did a really great. And I had shared that on Small Winds a while back, but really good.
Which, by the way, reminds me too, there's so many different ways to do it, and you don't have to take all the steps all the time. But I'm the marketing guy, so I have to be getting on your case on a regular basis. So you pay me for it. The live shows in the booth. How many of those things are you doing?
I have not done any live shows.
Yes, I have got to get you on that train, because you're good on camera. You're obviously gregarious. You're having all of these conversations, and there's always downtime in a booth, or when you set it up, or after the show's over, to just get in there with the camera and live stream to Instagram or live stream to Facebook. Got to get you doing it.
Okay, keep asking me about that, because there are times when, especially on an off day or the weather's not great, and I'm just sitting there killing time in my booth, and that actually would be a really great thing to
incorporate. And look, it's like anything else. Like, people are terrified of being on camera. What do you say? How do you fill the dead air? And it's always the same response, right? How do you get to Carnegie Hall? Practice. You got to go at it and go at it and go at it. One thing I want to ask you, a dead to rights question. Simple. Does John Kennington have the niche?
Yes, I've got. My problem is I have too many niches, but they all sell though.
They all sell. Yeah, because I was looking at your work, and for those of you guys that are watching, I'm now scrolling through it, and I wouldn't say you have a niche. I would say your work spans a number of different gamuts. There's some nature stuff in there. There's some aviation stuff that I saw in there. There's some classic, there's some Route 66 stuff in there. Like, you don't have a tightly defined niche. And I asked this, John, under the lens that, like, so many people are like terrified. Not terrified, but I'll just get started when I figure out what my niche is. Or if I could just have the niche, I would be successful. And early on in my career, like in this business and learning, I was like, that's great advice. I totally agree. You guys are all over the place. But I continue to see more stories like yours, where I don't think the average person could look at your work and say, this guy's got a niche. And yet it all sells. If you've got beautiful images and beautiful creativity and you've got the stories, it sells. It all sells. You don't need a niche. There's no point.
Yep, I agree. Sometimes I get a little jealous I see other photographers who have a very specific niche in their booth and who maybe have a more simpler setup. It's easier because I've got a double booth with big pieces in the background, and it takes me it's a lot of work. And I do see other photographers who I know, who are friends of mine, who have who more narrow niche, and they'll just kill it at these shows too. They're killing it with smaller inventory, and I think, man, I wish I was like that, but But again, I sell some aviation stuff. I sell the cars. I sell the landscapes. I sell some of the cemeteries. It all sells.
It all sells. Yeah.
It all sells. So I just can't bring myself to narrow it down.
Yeah. And again, there's no one way that works for everybody. One of the things, especially over the years, that we've gotten pigeonholed as a business at our storefronts is Oh, these are just the digital marketing and run sales and discounts guys. And we have so many people that do that and so many people that don't do that. And so many people that are doing shows and theirs like you, and some people that are only selling through galleries, and some people that have a niche, and some people that don't do prints. And I think there's just not one way that works for everybody. There's not one path that everyone needs to take. It's however you get it working, keep it going.
Absolutely.
One thing I do, and I love that you're on Copilot, and I love that Copilot's posting for you, especially when you're driving the car or staying in a hotel or tearing down the booth, and that is great. But you already have a sizable business, and for everyone, he's sitting at 1,400 fans on Instagram. I don't know how many you are up to on Facebook. We have a ton of blue ocean here on what can be done with your social media marketing, which is great. And I'm curious how you're thinking about that, or if you even have time to think about that because you're doing so many shows and theirs.
I don't. I've been actually posting a lot of my new work on Facebook, and I just recently started got into the Meta Business Suite, so I can then cross post my Facebook post to Instagram.
Right.
But I've been a little laggy on that. But you're right. But what you just said is so true, because when I'm at the shows, I'm driving, I don't have time to do a lot of creative posting. I know back over the winter when I wasn't quite so busy, I was doing some more videos and being a little more creative with my reels and stuff. But the last several months, because since March, I've had a show pretty much every weekend. Spring is a busy time for me. So I've got shows almost every weekend. I just have, and then in between, I just don't have time to do that. So Copilot's been just a saving grace on that. It keeps my
to keep it going. It's like a plant where it's like all you have to do is give it a little bit of water. Just give it a little bit of water and going when you're working on this higher leverage thing. And I would way rather you go and do those shows and fairs and build up customers and build up collectors and then build up email lists than social media followers, because I think there's more leverage in it. But it's the slow game on social media, right? And it pivots me to my next question, which is about story and what role story plays in your work. And do you feel like when you're selling in the booth, you have a story to accompany every picture? Do you go into that deeply? How do you think about that?
Oh, no, the story is really important. So if somebody's interested in a picture, I greet everybody who comes in the booth. For the most part, I'll say, hi, how you doing? And just let them look. But if they show an interest, then I'll get up and ask if they have any questions, and then frequently we'll share the story. And every picture's got a story. And in fact, I don't have an example to show you, but I have a little tag on each. And what I use is I have a little tag that's got a small thumbnail of the picture on it, so they can find it. They can make sure they know which picture it goes with, and and obviously with the price and format. But I've got a short 2 or 3 line telling the story behind that picture, and the title, location, then a quick story as to how. And I get more people tell me they really appreciate having those stories there and me telling them about the picture, because there's a school of thought with some photographers that say they don't want to put the price, they don't want to put the title or the story, because they want, if somebody's interested, then they'll ask and then they can engage, which is a valid point. But and I had gone that way for a while, but ever since I've been putting the little stories on my tag, I've gotten a lot of comments from people thanking me for doing that.
Will you send me a photo of what that looks like afterwards? I think people would love to see
I will do that. Yeah.
I am 100% the other side of the fence. I think everything needs to have a story. I think the story is as important as the work. I honestly, here I am looking at this beautiful image, but you have the competitors there. They have beautiful images. I like it. It looks stunning. It's certainly easier to sell in person than it is online, because I can see this beautiful print in front of me and I'm on the edge. And what gets them over the edge? The story. Because something resonates with them or pulls on their heartstring, or they traveled to that place, or they love that animal. I feel like it's the biggest game changer in all of it.
Absolutely. That's what closes the sale half the time. Is, like you said, there's a lot of people out there with really great landscape photography. There's a lot of competition, but if I've got a unique story behind that picture, then that attracts people. Shifting
gears a bit, I would be curious, how important is POD? And POD, for those that don't know, is print on demand. Is that for you in supporting you in the shows and fairs? Because I assume you're not carrying unlimited inventory everywhere you go. You have your displayed pieces. Are most people leaving with a print under their arm, or are you shipping it to them after the fact?
I've got I sell prints. I've got them. I got my display pieces like I got behind me here on the wall, and they're large for the most part metal. I have some canvas, mostly metal. Those are like 24 by 36, 30 by 50, 30 by 60. I've got really large pieces that I display. And those I will typically, I'll ship print on demand because I will tell people, because they get dinged up. You're schlepping these things around the shows. Every single one of them has got little nicks and flaws. But sometimes if someone really wants something, and if it's in good shape, I'll sell it off the wall if that's what will close the sale. Or if it's something I'm looking to move, I'll give them a little bit of a discount since it's nicked. And I'm always more than willing to negotiate with people a little bit. Bread and butter, though, is selling prints. And I'll show you, I got an example I did bring out with me. I've got two. I do sell, and I sell unmatted prints. Here's one of my prints.
Yeah.
Get it in front of the camera here. And I just have one size now. I used to have a couple of different sizes. I just have one size, a medium size. If someone wants a bigger print or a smaller print, then I will take the order for it and ship it to them.
Got it.
And I also sell, I have those, one print bin full of those. And I do have extra, what I do is I have a bucket with, because these are unmatted prints. There's just like a backing board on here because I don't sell it matted. Because number one, not everybody wants the color mat that I might pick. And also then what I'll do is I have a bunch of extra of these sleeves with me, and I have a bucket full of unbagged prints.
Okay.
So when I sell a print, I will go into my bucket, take that print out, slip it in a bag, and replace it. And I do sell limited edition prints. So these are all pre-numbered and everything. So all I have to do is pull it out and slip it in the bag and replace it. And I do a pretty good job of knowing how much extra to bring of those so I don't run out. Sometimes I do. And the other thing I sell is I sell these small canvases.
Okay.
These are 10 by 15. And I stretch these myself. I print those prints and these canvases I print myself and stretch those canvases, and I'll have those, and I sell those at a higher price point, but they do sell.
Got it.
So I'll sell a few $1,000s worth of prints at every show.
Got it. So a few thousand. So you have the prints, you have the canvas, and then what are the big photos on? Are those metal? Are those acrylic? Are they what?
Mostly metal.
Mostly metal.
Yep. I have a few things that are on some of my nostalgic. I have a series of nostalgic military stuff, Rosie the Riveter, that I do on canvas because it looks more vintagey.
Got it.
And I have a few shots that I think look better on the canvas, but for the 90% of the booth, I'm on metal.
Amazing. I ask everybody this question because it's important, and I get one-on-one. If there's one thing that we can improve at Art Storefronts, and just one, what would it be?
Oh man, you do everything really well.
Appreciate that, but there's got to be one thing that needs fixing.
I tell you, I would. This is more of a technical thing, but I would like to, because it's hard for me to, because I do, and I want to keep it all. It's all print on demand,
right?
And I use Bay as my printer. I'd like to be able to mix in my self-fulfilled orders with because I can't. I sell this as a 12 by 16. I print these myself.
Right.
If someone orders one of these big ones, or one of these prints,
you have to ship twice.
I don't have a good way of fulfilling those, or they cost significantly more than I can charge for those in the booth. I'd like to be able to offer those alongside to be able to mix in some self-fulfilled items with the print on demand.
Got it.
So it's a pretty technical thing, but that's something I really wish you'd have.
How would that work logistically? I guess everything would have to ship to you. You would include your stuff in the box, and then you would ship out, right?
Yeah. If there was a mixture of things, yes, that would be the case. Although ideally, I guess if it was, again, this is getting pretty technical to the specific to the ASF. If somebody ordered something that I would self-fulfill, that would come, maybe the order would split, have the print on demand part just normally, and then be able to say, oh, if I'm ordering a 12 by 16 paper print, or let's say all my paper prints, I would self-fulfill those rather than have Bay, the vendor, fulfill.
Yeah.
But those all come to me, and all the metal print orders go to Bay.
Got it. Yeah, and go direct.
You can't right now. I can't mix those two things. So that would be my thing I would love to see.
Noted. Love it. It's very good feedback. One thing I didn't ask you is give us sort of your price range. Okay. Number one. So like, where does it start in the low end? And I'd love to hear where it goes up to the high end. And then do you have non-wall art in the lineup? Any merchandise in your lineup at all?
Okay. First question. These prints I sell for $39.
Okay.
And my deal is if they buy, and my sign says 3 or more, $35 each.
Okay. Great.
And
deal.
interestingly, I have to say, my sign used to say $39, 3 or more, $35. Every show, I would have multiple people walk up to me with 3 prints in their hand and hand me $35.
Of course. Yeah.
So I had to add the word each after that. So those are my least expensive things. And now if somebody wanted an 8x10 print, I charge $29 and I would have to ship that to them, but I'll offer that. But cheapest thing in my booth is $39. The largest metal print that I have in the booth is about $2,700. I think it's a 36x72.
Got it.
And it's actually a triptych, and
that's a triptych.
That's $2,700. But I will take orders for bigger pieces, which I have done.
Got it.
Certainly, I can do any size. As I tell people with the big things on the wall, what I often will have people do is send me a picture of their wall. What I've been doing lately this last year is I tell them, send me a picture of your wall. I'll mock it up for you. And then we can estimate the size so you can figure out what size you need. And actually at the show, I'll say, hey, send me your phone number. And I send them a text at the show with a picture of the picture they're interested in. I say, oh, just reply to this text with the picture you take of your wall. That's been extremely effective.
Great hack right there. Yeah. And then you're not even fussing with email. We're direct to text.
Yep. And what was your second question there? I answered.
So you've got sub $100 all the way up to about $5,000. Let's just say $5,000 plus. Yep. Before we get into the non-wall art part, do you feel like that's on the shows you're doing? And look, I know you're always talking to the other people that are there. Do you feel like that's a good upper limit for the shows and fairs that you're in, is like the 5 to 7K range? Or do you feel like you could go even higher than that?
The shows I do, that's probably the upper limit.
Yeah.
There's a few shows I do where there's guys who are selling $15,000 pieces, and they'll occasionally sell one, but that's extremely specialized market and high risk market, and somebody who's built up to that point. And I'm certainly not at that point. 5,000 is sort of my cap. If I have a $5,000 sale, I'm as happy as could be.
Oh, I love that. Okay. And then what about non-wall art? Do you have any of that included in the booth?
No, because most of the shows I do not allow merchandise.
Really?
Yeah. Any of the major fine art festivals absolutely ban merchandise.
Wow.
Even note cards. So no note cards and no merchandise of any kind. No photo books. Probably 75% of the shows, no merchandise at all. Now, a photo book, I could probably get away with.
Yeah.
Because I do know, I got a couple of friends who've done photo books and have them out at some other shows. So probably a photo book is fine.
Yeah.
But a note card, t-shirt, mug, absolutely forbidden. You'll get kicked. You'll be asked to take it down.
Yeah.
But again, I'm in the higher end. These are the higher end shows. And there are a couple of shows I do every year where I can sell that stuff, but I don't because I just don't.
Yeah, it's all
worth it to do for those couple of shows.
It's all or none. And I understand why they do it, because there's such a differentiation. Like when you open it up, it becomes a crafty thing, and people have sculptures and knickknacks and cutting boards and everything under the sun. And it's a different vibe. But I have to think they'd let you get away with the photo books, and we got to get you.
I think the photo book would be fine. I'd be able to get away with that. That would work. But but the merchandise and I used to have, when I first started, I did note cards. And I know some people who sell a ton of note cards.
Yeah,
they'll usually at least make their booth fee from the note cards. What I found though was that it cannibalized my print sales. They really I really love this picture, they say. I don't want to spend $39. I can buy a $5 note card and they'll buy the note card. Yeah. So I get the main reason, one of the biggest reason I got rid of them was cannibalizing print sales.
Yeah. So your AOV
I really like this. Your minimum's $39. You can't spend $39 and come in and look and enjoy looking at them. You're not my customer.
Wow. I love that. So,
and I don't want to be, and I'm not going to be. Then when you're selling note cards, you're selling $5 pop note cards. You're busy dealing with that transaction rather than talking to the customer who might be wanting to spend $1,000.
yeah. Yeah.
So it's not, and then it's just more work. It's more inventory to deal with, the carry, the stock. It just complicates life a lot. So now when you're first starting out, that's great. I had note cards for several years, and I made some money off of them. But I'm at the point I'm at, it's just not worth it for me to deal with note cards.
Yeah, and if you're solo in the booth, it's so right. If you get bogged down to make pennies and you're losing your whales, like that's your whole show. Your whole show. Yeah.
Oh yeah. And really, I get bugged somebody. So then you get the guys who are coming up and showing you their pictures on their iPhone, or other people just pumping you for information, and I can't talk to the other customer. Sometimes I'll just cut away from somebody and say, I got to go help this person, and just to shoo him out of the booth.
You have to. There's some people that are just chatters. We're not angry at you. It's just how it goes, right? It's just how it goes.
But you never know. You never know who's a customer. I've had people that I thought were just bugging me, and I wish they'd leave, and then they end up buying something. So
for sure,
try to be polite to everybody, because you just don't know.
You never know. It's all just about reps and sets. And I still firmly believe the cheaper items plays a role. But if you're making the merch sales and you're not getting the email address, then it goes out the window. Because the whole point is, okay, get addicted to my photography, start loving it, start connecting with the images. Now I have a way to continue contacting you and contacting you. If I don't, then the merch even becomes like less significant. But it's been fascinating for me just to hear from an operator that's doing the number of shows that you are per year and going. And then I have to just get close to ending with it. How many miles on the car?
I just bought I had to buy a new van back last September, and I am up to, I think, a little over 20,000 miles since September.
Already on a brand new one. Road Warrior. Yeah, you're amazing, John. I don't want to take any more of your time. I really appreciate you spending the time with us. If folks want to follow up and get to know John and see more about John, greatest way is on his Instagram handle at Kennington Photo, or your website address is imagesfor.life, which I think is pretty creative. It's a cool website address for sure. Yeah. And we will encourage John, okay, to start creating more content of the road trips. All right. I just finished my first family road trip. I put 5,000 miles in my truck in 3 weeks. We went from Southern California up to Montana, all around Montana and back. And the stuff in those road trips is like nothing. It's wild. There's always something going on, something cool that happens, a beautiful landscape and everything else. And I think if you started challenging yourself to storytell a little bit, something wild going on in the gas station, where you stayed for the hotel, a meal, something interesting, it would start building sort of the lore and the narrative of, oh, he's in another show and there he is. And then you could end with a thing on the booth. So we got to talk about some of your social strategies and work on them.
Okay, I'll do that. And I'm going to be in Montana next month, so I will.
Amazing. Where's the show in Montana?
Actually, I'm going shooting. I'm going to Glacier National Park.
Oh, amazing.
Then I'm going over to Seattle to visit my son, and then we're actually taking a 4-week road trip. No shows, just shooting and sightseeing.
There you go. And creating the work. John, it has been an absolute pleasure. Thank you for all the knowledge you shared. Guys, go ahead and give him a follow at Kennington Photo, or again, Images for Life. And anybody that's watching this after, or listening to this after the fact, there'll be show notes of some of that trade craft that he's got in his booth. And thanks everybody for tuning in. Thanks, John.
Okay. Thanks, Patrick.